Hey, happy Sunday, everybody, and welcome to OpenMicVO. My name's Graham Spicer, and I moderate these little Sunday evening get-togethers, and so glad that you're here with us tonight. No specific theme to tonight's Q&A. Questions, comments, stories about any topic related to voiceover are welcome. So maybe you have a question about voiceover performance or doing auditions. Maybe you've got a question about coaching or demos, perhaps home studio questions, business and marketing. All questions, all comments with regards to those types of topics are welcome. I'm actually particularly interested in hearing from anyone who attended VOAtlanta last week, and I'm curious to hear what you thought the biggest takeaway was for you. What was it about the conference that you enjoyed the most? Very interested in hearing that. The rules tonight, there's only 3 of them, and they're pretty simple. The first one is, please keep yourself muted if you're not actively participating in the conversation at any given moment. I certainly want you to unmute yourself and to contribute whenever you'd like. No problem at all. But just if you're not actively participating, if you keep yourself muted, it means that we don't have lots of trouble with background noise like dogs barking and the kids are screaming and, all that kind of stuff. That's much appreciated. Thank you. The second rule is be nice. This group is about being positive and supportive of each other. There's participants tonight at all different stages of their careers, but everyone here is a professional and deserves to be treated with professional respect. To those of you who are new members of the voiceover community, no such thing as a silly question. Go ahead and ask away. And the third rule is, well, it's not so much a rule as just a warning, is that we record these open mic VOs and they get posted to YouTube in the next day or two. So just keep that in mind if you're sharing any information. If it's proprietary or confidential, just remember that this does get posted to YouTube. So let's get started. The topic tonight, again, is open. Anything that you want to talk about, any questions that you have that are related to voiceover in any way, home studio questions, questions about auditioning and performance issues, questions about business and marketing, business development, all are welcome. I'm going to start unmuting people, and once you see that you are unmuted, feel free to ask the first question or offer up the first comment. That'd be awesome. It takes me a second to go through this process here. I have to do this one at a time, so it takes a minute. Okay, I've got most of you unmuted now, so whoever wants to ask the first question, give us the first comment. That's awesome.
Yeah, hi, Graham.
Lynn?
Hi, how you doing?
Fine.
I'm just fine. I wanted to kind of follow up with a statement you made last week that sort of intrigued me. I brought up the question of whether, because I didn't attend VOAtlanta, I wanted to, and I asked if voices.com was represented there, and you said that they had not been able to participate. And then you said something sort of intriguing. You said, I wish they had.
Mhm.
And I was wondering if you could expand on that a little bit. Why you said that and what your feelings were about them not being there, if you would.
Well, the executive producer of VO Atlanta, Gerald Griffith, made a decision not this year, but the year before, that Voices.com wasn't welcome at the conference, just because of the general feeling amongst the voiceover community that they were really not, acting in the best interests of voice actors. And I kind of am of mixed feelings on this. In some ways, I feel that the only way to get Voices.com to change is to keep them engaged. And if we're just going to shun them, then they're just going to continue doing whatever it is that they want to do. Um, if we don't have any opportunity to provide them with our feedback through having them
Right.
attend conferences and participating in panels, the other thing is that there could very well be positive changes going on at Voices.com that we're not aware of, and because we won't allow them to speak to us, that they don't really have any opportunity to present us with updated information. So that's my feelings on Voices.com and their participation. I think if you're going to have a panel discussion about the online casting industry, it really is a disservice to not have a representative of arguably the largest online casting site in attendance.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, as much as, and I thought, and I was thinking to myself before I had a chance to ask you whether they were there or not, I thought, oh, gee, I wonder if like there would be people there who would be, like picketing them or, protesting in some way. But I think it's so right. I think that, they need to hear and need to look into the eyes of people who have genuine concerns and genuine questions. And without that dialogue, it kind of concerns me that a lot of people who are new, who are newbies, are signing up and being taken advantage of, and they can just Voices.com can merely keep on doing this without having any accountability. I think it's important, yeah, to have that accessibility to them, but then on the other hand, yeah, I'm like you, I'm just torn. But thanks for kind of expanding on that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, not at all. I participate in each of the online casting platforms just because I want to monitor what's going on. And it's funny, I've been noticing that many of the jobs being posted to Voices.com, which are, professional services jobs, the jobs that they manage themselves, I've been finding increasingly that the budgets appear at least to be much more reasonable and much more in keeping with industry standards. And by industry standards, I generally refer to the GVAA rate card. And
But it's kind of interesting though. What's posted, Graham, as the budget for the job, and what actually finally gets paid is another whole story. So I kind of, I could see them posting for a job and but it is actually more work than is actually posted for. I had a situation where there was a job way back when I was with Voices.com, that was posted for a certain amount. And then when it finally came up, it really wasn't for that amount. Oh yeah, there were things that happened. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just very wary. I'm just very wary. But I mean, miracles do happen. I mean, so you have to try and keep an open an open, frame of mind. I agree.
I certainly think that, I think that voices.com paid a lot of money to buy voicebank.net. And I think that they have been surprised by the outcry and the resistance amongst the voiceover community to them taking over the distribution of union breakdowns, union casting jobs. And I wonder, I don't know. It's not like I have any, insight into what's happening at voices.com. I have no communication with the Cicerellis or with anyone else within their organization. But I gotta hope that if they're not making good decisions because it's the right thing to do, maybe they're being forced to make better decisions because they're being forced to by the community and the lack of acceptance of some of their business practices. I don't know.
I think Morgan Stanley is going to make a big difference in what their business decisions are going to be, because my understanding is the money that they got is on a very short leash, that they have to probably within a minimum of 2 years start to show payback for Morgan Stanley. So they're really under the financial gun right now. And so I have a tendency to think that their business decisions are based more on that than anything else. Yeah, I think it is. Sometimes I think they're kind of hermetically sealed and in a vacuum, that they don't think that starting to deal directly touching union VO people, that it's not going to cause a kerfuffle, Yeah, it's a very thorny knot. And, my concern is really for people out there who are newbies and getting started, people being taken advantage of. And that really disturbs me. And, so yeah, but yeah, thanks a lot. You've always been very level-headed about this and very real and very fair. And that's why I wanted to, kind of get your feedback and opinion on that statement you made.
Well, I appreciate you saying those kind words. I have made an effort, as long as I've been kind of at the forefront of this discussion about online casting sites and the ethics of online casting sites. I've really worked hard to try and stay balanced and level-headed about it. So I appreciate you saying those words. I really do. Thank you, Lynn.
You're very welcome.
Graham, I have a question for you.
Hello, James. How are you tonight?
I am okay. I used to refer people to voicebank.net quite often when they were talking about demos and all that kind of stuff, because you could, everybody who was represented by any agent in Canada and the United States had their demos up there. And now that kind of thing has sort of gone by the wayside, because when I was putting my demo together a few years ago, I spent a whole weekend just listening to demos of people, trying to find out what the trends were and all that kind of stuff. But that resource seems to be gone. I was trying to navigate the site today to try to find just listening to demos from agencies, and I cannot find that anywhere. Does it exist?
There is a back door into the listing of agencies, and therefore you can listen to the talent that's signed to the agencies. But honestly, I can't remember right off what that back door is. And the second thing is that because many agencies have declined to participate, that the listing is far from complete. So it certainly isn't the resource that it was 6 months ago. Really now, all that I can really suggest is you have to go directly to the agents' websites themselves, like go directly to Abrams Artists, go directly to William Morris Endeavor, go directly to, Vox Talent. And, their direct websites generally list all of their talent as well and have their demos. But it certainly isn't the nice, seamless and
Yeah, I mean, it was a really valuable resource to, just to listen to demos of any kind, commercial, um, narration. There were even audiobook demos on there. I guess the other thing too would be to go on something like Backstage and look at the agencies that do voiceover representation, and then find those agencies and go to that agency, find their website to
yeah,
listen to the talent.
yeah. I mean, again, you're absolutely right. It was a very helpful resource, and it's just not there for us anymore. Now we have to go to the individual agencies' websites. The convenience of having it all listed at VoiceBank, that's just something that Voices.com clearly didn't want to continue, didn't want to maintain.
Graham, is the VO Agent Alliance set up with any of that now?
So just for those of you who aren't aware what Paula is referring to, the VoiceOver Agents Alliance is a group of agents, and at this point it's primarily non-union agents who have gotten together and are trying to come up with an alternative way for the breakdowns that they receive from casting directors to be distributed to the various agencies. And they are throwing their support behind, I think it's called Voice Actors Hub or Voice Acting Hub. And I'm not sure yet whether that site is up and running and is actively posting breakdowns, posting castings or not. Maybe there's someone here online with us tonight that has more insight into that.
Hi,
Making some notes here.
this is Anthea from Illinois.
Hello.
Hi there. I have this is one of those odd questions. I know there are so many different categories of voiceover. I mean, it's just mind-boggling, and I still consider myself a newbie. I was just wondering which of these categories in voiceover is the least age discriminatory. In other words, I don't want any age discrimination. What looks, I know that mainly when you are really advanced, what I've seen is they're really advanced people. They can be as young as 18. They can be as old as 70s or 80s, and it doesn't matter. But as a newbie, I believe it might matter more as you try to find work. And as I'm still trying to find my way, I was just kind of curious, which of these categories would be the least discriminatory about age?
This is a topic that comes up on a fairly regular basis, the idea of age discrimination in the voice acting community. And I don't find it to be as big an issue as many kind of purport it to be. I have a voice that clearly doesn't sound young. I'm a middle-aged male. I can pull off senior male, but I certainly can't pull off like a young hip read. But then even when I was young and semi-hip, I couldn't pull off that read because I sounded then pretty much the way I sound now. So I don't think that our voices change nearly as much over time as our appearance does, as an example, which is one of the reasons, by the way, that I'm not a huge fan generally of people putting, giant photos of themselves on their websites, because I don't think that you want to limit the potential jobs that could come your way because you look a certain way, and that's not the way that the creative director or the casting director envisioned that the voice actor should look like. So I haven't found age discrimination to be a huge factor unless you quite clearly are You know, how there's something very distinctive about your voice that makes you sound like a very old or very young. But even then, I would suggest that you probably sounded that way even when you weren't in that age category. That was
There
a rambling comment. Did that make any sense?
There is a classic story that floats around union people, and I cannot remember the gentleman's name right off the bat, but he's in his 80s right now. He auditioned for and got and booked a job for a youngish sounding person. And when he showed up at the job at the studio, the booth director called his agent and said, "Why did you send me this old man?" And they said, "Well, this is the person, this is the voice that you hired." It didn't matter what his age was. He sounded like the person that they wanted. He sounded young. And they just sort of laughed it off. But that goes, to the age discrimination kind of thing. The man sounded exactly like they wanted, but he was in his 70s, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's so much I don't think there's so much age discrimination, so much as you have to look at what pool of people you're pulling from, especially the baby boomers. There's a lot of baby boomers in VO just because of the fact there's a lot of baby boomers. So I think that if you're a baby boomer age, I think you're probably up against a little bit more competition when you're auditioning for jobs just because of that curve, because there's more people in the baby boomers as VO people. And Graham, I have to say the same thing. I sounded the same way at 25 as I do now. I'm thank goodness for that. I think it's not so much age discrimination as it is. Though I will have to say, there's a lot of commercial stuff out there that they'll post for someone that they want a 20 sounding female, and and they want someone who's authoritative and is full of life experience, which always cracks me up. So I just thought they'd throw that in.
I think the key words there are 20-something. They want someone that sounds like a 20-something female. And that doesn't mean you have to be a 20-something female to sound like a 20-something female.
Right.
So I think that there's lots of discrimination in the voiceover business. Ageism, I don't think, is necessarily one of the ways in which we get discriminated against.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just really curious. And by the way, on my website, I have a picture of a dog because I was kind of terrified of, if I put my picture up there, I do not sound like my voice, and I know that. And I keep getting mixed reviews on this. People say, "Oh, but people want to know who they're hiring." And I'm not going to mention my age. I will say that I definitely, from what I gather, I do not look like my voice. And so thank you very much for everybody who added in.
Graham.
Randy, hi, how are you?
This is Randy in Texas. I'm doing really well. Talking about this theme, I was at VO Atlanta and actually thoroughly enjoyed it. But along the lines of age discrimination, Townsend Coleman mentioned, he may have mentioned in his keynote, I missed it, I was working, but later on in the week, how it was time for him, or he recognized a time when it was time for him to sort of pass the baton to the younger actors. I'm not sure what genre he was working in. I know he did a lot of promos, and maybe it was video games, animation, I'm not real certain. But he said that he was finding that he was losing jobs to the younger actors, and it was a transition for him to be able to move to other genres of voiceover acting to be able to keep working.
See, I don't know Townsend that well. I've only met him on a couple of occasions, but this reminds me of several conversations I've had with Joe Cipriano. Mm-hmm. Joe is experiencing much of the same thing, where he had a certain sound which was very much in vogue in the late 80s and through the 90s, and he's had a very successful career. And he as well is deciding that he needs to pass the baton on to younger people. But it's not so much that the sound of his voice has changed. It's his style of delivery is not so much in vogue anymore. And when someone like Joe Cipriano has done, tonight on Fox, watch Homer blow up the nuclear reactor. Tune in tonight at 8. When he's done that for 30 years of his career, it's not easy to break out of that. And that's not really the sound that's in fashion. So
the culture has changed more than the age of the actor.
Exactly. I don't think it's so much that Joe's voice has changed. It hasn't changed. He sounds exactly the same as he did 30 years ago, but it's the cultural acceptance of that type of delivery that has we've moved on culturally, and that's why it's a lot of promo now is very young guys that have a very kind of hip and laid back delivery. The whole kind of excited, tonight on Fox, like that's just not. It's gone.
It's the same kind of thing that people come from a very radio broadcast background have to unlearn a lot of bad habits because that kind of delivery and sound isn't in vogue right now.
That's right. That's right. Sandra is asking via the Q&A box, I was told that Voice123 is changing their website. Was this discussed at VOAtlanta? And Sandra, yes, they are going to be updating their website very soon. And I know this because it was announced at VOAtlanta, and actually I was, voice123.com was nice enough to ask me to do a test with them. They wanted me to come and look at the new graphics, the new website, and to offer comments on its usability. It certainly looks a lot cleaner and it's far more intuitive to use, but the real benefits are some of the changes that they're going to be bringing to the community in the way in which they post castings. One example is the much disliked voice match system, where the more you auditioned, the less auditions they sent you, because they wanted to spread the jobs around amongst a greater pool of actors so that the number of people who weren't renewing would be reduced. So it was a pretty big deal when they announced that they're going to walk away from this idea of limiting the number of auditions that an actor can submit on a daily or a weekly basis. So that there's going to be some benefits to us as actors, in addition to the fact that it's just a whole lot easier and more intuitive to navigate through now.
I'm just wondering if that's going to, if there's going to be a faster scramble to get auditions in, because if they're now sending these out to a larger group, let's say audition A, out to a larger pool of people that qualify for that, as compared to using smart casting.
Yeah, but they're not going to do that, Lynn.
No, they're not going to do that?
So it's still going to be sent out kind of in waves. So
rolled out. Okay.
Yeah, the auditions will still be rolled out. There just is no limitation any longer on how many auditions you're going to be able to submit.
Oh, that's nice. Is there going to be any change as far as the feedback system? The 1 to 4 stars system is just ridiculous. I mean, it's never accurate at all, because most of the time they just use that. The clients use that to sort things out, or I've gotten like 1 star and then gotten the job because they're confused. Are they going to address that at all?
That question was asked, and I don't think that there was a definitive answer. I think that we all, I think that the message was relayed loud and clear to the general manager of Voice 123 who was in attendance that we don't like the rating system. Whether they're going to do something about it or not, I'm not sure. The whole SmartCast thing was what most of the
that's been the real bee in the bonnet for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm just trying to make some notes here. Who else has got a question for us tonight?
Well, Graham, you had asked at the beginning about those of us that did go to VOAtlanta. I'll throw in my 2 cents. I had the privilege of being an ambassador this year, which for those that don't know what that is, it's volunteering a portion of your time in exchange for a reduced entrance fee, which was wonderful. It was a great experience for me. I got a chance to meet a lot of people I probably would never have met otherwise. And then just wanted to say too that my biggest takeaway was, again, the audiobook portions of the different breakout sessions. I went to a couple that were by Michelle Cobb and others from Audio Publishing Association, APA, and I learned so much, and so much more than I even anticipated that I would learn this time. And because last year was so excellent and overwhelming, and I just didn't think that this year would be equal, and it was, and in a lot of different ways, but it was just a really wonderful experience for me. So anybody that is considering going next year, if you haven't been, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, we were really lucky this year that Michelle Cobb, who's the president of the APA and just is an incredible source of knowledge when it comes to audiobook producing in general. The fact that she was in attendance and was so involved in the programming was just an incredible coup for Gerald Griffith and the rest of the producers at VOAtlanta, because she's not one that attends a lot of these conferences in the past. So it was great to have her there as a resource.
It was, and she's very approachable. She's just a real down-to-earth kind of a person and just real easy to talk to. I really enjoyed chatting with her even after the session. Oh
yeah, she's absolutely, exactly as you described. There's no kind of pretense. There's no airs. She's very down to earth. So I'm so glad that your experience with her was as positive as it was.
Yeah.
Anybody else with us tonight that attended VOAtlanta, and what were some of the benefits? What are some of the big takeaways that you left the conference with?
Hi, Graham. It's Linda Broom.
Hello, Linda.
Hi, it's nice to see you. I am definitely new to this business. I haven't even recorded a demo yet, still in coaching, but I did attend VOAtlanta. I was very nervous about going just because I am so new, but I was pleasantly surprised at how open everyone was. Just honestly wanted to help and give advice, and just thought it was such a wonderful experience. Learned a lot, still kind of going through my notes and things like that, but I just really enjoyed it. And if anybody that's kind of new to this business and not sure if they should go, I would strongly recommend it. And I've already registered for next year, so I'm super excited about it and really enjoyed it.
Well, so glad that you had a good experience. There was an incredible group of presenters this year, so there was certainly a lot to take away from it. Although I still say always that the most learning at these types of conferences happens in the hallways in between sessions rather than in the sessions themselves. Just meeting people and networking and hanging out with people at lunch. It's a tremendous experience. So glad that you enjoyed the experience, and well, certainly you must have enjoyed it, enough that you wanted to go back for next year, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you on the networking side. It is probably, while the X sessions I went to, and obviously the breakout sessions were amazing, so much was gained just from the networking and just talking to people and, picking their brains and getting to know them a little bit better about how they, advanced in their career and things like that. So you're right. The networking piece of it was very helpful.
Fantastic. Well, so glad that you enjoyed yourself, Linda.
Linda, which X session did you go to?
I actually budgeted for 3.
Wow.
I went to the, I know, I went to the conversational read with Scott, is it Parkin?
Parkin, yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. And I went to Are You Improv Ready with Liz Atherton. That was amazing as well. I really enjoyed meeting her. And then the last one I went to was actually was called Let's Eat Mommy. And it was
with
about bringing
Vikas.
clarity to. Yes, with Vikas. Yes, it was
Vikas,
really
I
great.
was wrong.
He was. Yeah, it was a really neat class. It was more geared toward audiobooks.
Yeah.
But I really got a lot out of it.
That's great. Well, I probably met you because that's where I was serving as an ambassador, was Brett checking everybody for the X sessions.
Well, we
So, hi again.
probably did, yes.
Yeah.
So tonight's topic is open. Certainly welcome. You're welcome to ask any questions with regards to the voiceover business. It could be, we can continue talking about VOAtlanta, or we can branch off and start talking about home studio equipment, any sort of questions or comments you might have with regards to performing voice acting, performing voiceover, anything to do with business development for voiceover, or other business and marketing topics. I'm happy to entertain any questions tonight. Throw them open to the crowd and let's see what comes back.
Graham, I had a question on another casting site. Somebody had recently recommended a site that I was investigating, and it's VOAtlanta by Kevin West. And it's a very basic interface at this point. He's rebuilding the entire website. But I've auditioned for some of the jobs. I haven't gotten any, but there seem to be some really good quality jobs on there. And I wondered if anyone else had used them, had found anything about them. I let my subscription on some other sites lapse and joined Boldago later last year, and just joined VOAtlanta a couple of weeks ago. And I just wondered if you knew anything about, the planet and what you thought.
I'd like to throw it open to the crowd, but I would suggest that I had been a member of VOAtlanta some time ago, several years ago, when it was owned by somebody else. And it was run very dishonestly and unethically at the time. But I understand that this new person is running it completely independently of the former owners, and that it's a whole new thing. Basically, the only similarity is that it's still called VOAtlanta. So I don't have a very pleasant memory of VOAtlanta just because of the way it used to be run, but I'm hoping that under new ownership that it's going to be run far more fairly and equitably for all of the actors. Anybody else have any experience with VOAtlanta, and have you had any success on it?
Crickets. Okay.
Yeah, it's not that well known a online casting site, so I'm not that surprised that there's no one else online with us tonight. There's about 30 of us on right now. I'm not surprised that there's not a lot of experience here, but I'm certainly hoping, Steve, that you'll check back with us again in a few weeks and give us an update on how your experiences are and whether you've booked something yet. Because
Yeah, I will. I had a question on the site. I sent an email to Kevin. He got right back to me. So it seems very responsive, and maybe because it's small. As I said, the interface is terrible. It's a very basic, simple interface that doesn't give you a lot of, bells and whistles to do anything with. But it does have the auditions. Some of them just want a demo. Some of them want custom. And you could, you basically send it and go from there. But he said he's rebuilding the entire site. I had heard that there was a site that had kind of gone defunct years ago, and he just re-energized it. I'm surprised he used a name that may have had a bad connotation, but that's up to him. But it seems like he's trying anyway, so we'll have to see. There were a couple of pretty well-renowned coaches and other folks who mentioned that particular site, and that's kind of how I found out about it and figured it's worth a shot.
Yeah, Graham, this is Craig Williams. I did a little bit of research on it as well, and one person, Darren Altman from the UK, and obviously I've got a UK bias to it, he said he's been on it for a while and he got no jobs through it really whatsoever. But then I'm on a Facebook group and saw that J. Michael Collins just joined VOAtlanta. So take from that what you will.
yeah, J. Michael does his homework pretty well. And I don't think that he would have joined if he felt that, because he was aware, certainly, of the rather distasteful way in which it had been run previously. So if he decided to join up, I would think that that is a pretty strong endorsement from a guy that knows what he's talking about when it comes to online casting.
Yeah, it was one of his students and J. Michael who actually recommended it to me. So
very good, very good. Who else has got a question for us, a comment, a story about your attendance at VoiceOver Atlanta? Anything to do with the voiceover business is more than welcome tonight.
I don't know if this is a question. I've been in the audiobook portion of VO for a long time and am wanting to get back into more short form performance, and was wondering if anybody could recommend what I need to do for marketing or that sort of thing.
So when you say you want to get into more short form performance, are you still interested in narrative work or?
Yeah, of course. But like in the audiobook world, especially the way I've been doing it, it's not just narration, it's producing as well, where I do a lot of editing, and it's very, very time consuming. And I just got away from VO for a long time, and I'm wondering if I need to start taking classes again, or what I might need to do to get in more into the VO part of it, instead of this long grunge of what I've been doing. Don't mean to sound negative. It's been a great ride, but
certainly there's no doubt that audiobook work is exhausting. The performance of it, and then, as you have alluded to, the technical work that you're responsible for as a narrator when it comes to, providing, reasonably well edited files with, the breaths reduced and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get why you'd find that tiring after a while. But I do think if you've been out of other forms of narrative work for some time, and it sounds like you might well have been, out of that other types of work for a while, is that you might want to go to a coach someplace. And even if all you do is take 2 or 3 sessions just to kind of get back into the groove, so to speak, when it comes to short form narration, and to make sure you have an understanding as to what the current fashion is when it comes to short form narration, because these things do go through trends just like any other form of art does. And, what might have been, a very good, a very standard kind of, narrative read from 10 years ago may or may not still be suitable in today's environment. So I certainly think that finding a coach for 2 or 3 sessions, you probably don't need 10, but even just 2 or 3 to make sure that you're staying contemporary could be very helpful.
Well, thank you.
Pat is asking about, Pat's a newbie and is curious to know about how to handle federal, state, local taxes, et cetera, when it comes to running a small business as a voice actor. And I was wondering if there was anyone out there that had some information with regards to how you specifically handle your, making sure that the appropriate taxes are submitted to the right places on time. How do you go about doing that? How do you make sure that you're keeping up with all of the filings that are necessary?
Graham, when I was first starting to get back into this, I was concerned with that too. And I personally don't have enough income yet to even worry about taxes, but I reached out to the Small Business Administration in this area. And because I know every state and even every locality has their own set of taxes and laws and everything. But the Small Business Administration, it had an excellent workshop specifically geared for all different aspects of having your own business, whether you're a corporation or whether you're a small business or whether you're a single solopreneur, as Paul Strickworth calls it. I would suggest that would be a first step for someone looking for that kind of information.
So you just looked up the SBA online and you
Yeah.
were able to find this resource through the website?
Yeah. And they even had, I think, if I remember correctly, I think I went to their website and then looked up workshops or there's all sorts of resources there and government sites like that.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. So the Small Business Administration, I think it's just sba.gov, if I remember right. And it sounds like there's some tremendous resources there. Thank you so much for offering that, Paula.
I'd like to add as well, Graham, that I started using QuickBooks at the end of last year and sending all my invoices through QuickBooks and linking my business account to that QuickBooks small business account. And pretty much that keeps everything all in one place and keeps up with what you'll owe at the end of the year with taxes and all that kind of stuff. And last year I just did my taxes with TurboTax, the business edition, and it went pretty smooth.
Yeah, I use QuickBooks as well to keep track of all of the appropriate, I live in Canada, so there's, different tax regimens here. There's, a value-added tax in Canada that needs to be charged to Canadian customers, et cetera. And I find QuickBooks really, really helpful when it comes to tracking not only the taxes that I have collected, but the taxes that I've paid, because in Canada, you remit only the difference between the taxes you collect and the taxes that you've paid for business expenses. So, QuickBooks is a great resource for keeping track of that kind of stuff. It's a little bit like using Pro Tools. It's probably overkill for what we need as a voice actor, but it works very effectively nonetheless.
Or you could do what I did, is hire a tax accountant whose wife is a voice actor because he knows about the business.
Do you want to share any names?
His name is Joe Novak.
And does Joe take on new clients?
Oh, I'm sure that he would. He's in Closter, New Jersey. So if you look up for Joe Novak, let's see, I have my tax bill right here. It's Novak CPA and Associates.
And it's Novack?
Yep, Novack. www.novackcpa.com.
I'm just trying to. So it's Novak and
his
Associates.
wife. I was going to set her up with a home studio, and she was afraid of using the software and all that other kind of stuff. So she comes to my place and cuts her commercial auditions.
Okay.
It's only a couple of towns north of me, so I mean we're real close together here.
And you get a deal on your taxes as a result.
Hopefully.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
I use QuickBooks also. I use it's called QuickBooks Self-Employed, and I find it really user-friendly. I have the app on my phone as well as on my laptop, and it's really easy to use for me.
I didn't realize that they had a version called Self-Employed. Maybe they don't offer it in Canada. I'm not sure, but I'm going to definitely be checking that out.
Yeah.
Graham, sorry to interrupt, Paul. I was just
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
If you do the small business TurboTax end of year subscription, you get the program that she was saying for free. QuickBooks Self-Employed.
Fantastic. Yeah, right now I'm subscribing just to the regular QuickBooks Online, and I think I'm paying, I don't know, $17 a month or something like that. So we still have time for a couple of other questions. Anyone have any questions for us tonight? Any thoughts on business development, other, business topics? Anything with regards to performance, anything with regards to home studios, microphones, audio interfaces? And we'll do our best to answer for you.
Hi, Graham.
Hey, Pat.
In doing some research, if people pay with PayPal, I noticed that some of the information said that the person, the voiceover artist, also tax on the 4% fee that PayPal assesses you, if you will. Does anybody have any experience with being paid through PayPal, and do the people who hire you balk at that 4%, or you just add it in without them knowing it? That makes sense.
Question. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Well, Pat, I use PayPal a lot when it comes to collecting payment for my voiceover services. I have never charged, I've never tacked on a surcharge for people who want to pay by PayPal. As far as I'm concerned, it's just one of the costs of doing business. And if people are paying by credit card, then the retailer has to pay a fee in order for that to happen, and the retailer just assumes that as part of the cost of doing business. The other thing is, I'd rather someone pay me by PayPal and I give up 4% than me have to wait for 90 days for a check, which may or may not clear when I go to deposit it. I'd rather just pay the 4% and be done with it and collect the money and work on getting the next job.
Great. Thanks, Graham.
I have a quick question for you. Is there another service that is similar to PayPal? I can't use PayPal. I was a victim of identity theft. So there was an issue, and so PayPal is not in my that's not in my line of sight. Thank you.
Yeah, Anthea, if you use QuickBooks Self-Employed and send the invoices straight from QuickBooks, then the client can pay directly using, I think they can do bank drafts and credit card payments. So you could probably use that.
Thank you. That sounds promising.
Yeah, there are several other kind of PayPal alternatives. None of them are kind of coming to mind right now, though. is anybody aware of any of these PayPal alternatives? Or maybe someone could do just a really quick Google search for me and see if there's anything that comes up. Stripe, I think, is one that kind of immediately comes to mind for processing credit cards. Whether they offer services like PayPal or not, though, I'm not 100% sure.
Venmo does.
Venmo, VENMO, right?
VEN, V as in Victor, ENMO.
Yeah, that I have heard of that. I haven't used it. Are you using it right now?
I've actually made payments and gotten payments through Venmo, and it's very similar to PayPal.
And it seems to work effectively, and you trust that the money is going to end up in your account properly, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that it does.
Yeah,
it's more used for person-to-person payment. You know, the kids today, as we like to say, use it to pay each other, you know, split a bill at a restaurant, things like that. But it can also be used in, you know, in the entrepreneur sense.
Yeah, Chase uses Zelle, Graham, Z-E-L-L-E. And I think
yeah, PNC uses that also.
Zello, right?
Zelle, Z-E-L-L-E.
Oh, okay. Yeah, again, not familiar with it, but if Chase is behind it, then surely it's reputable. And I always worry sometimes when with these types of fulfillment, like financial fulfillment companies, I always worry that either A, they're going to get compromised and some of my confidential financial information is going to end up in the wrong hands, or B, they're just plain flaky and I'm not going to receive my money someday. So I'm glad to hear that there's these options, Venmo and Zelle, that, you know, seem to be backed by real players and that you're actually going to be safe with them. Jim says Square is another option, and that is one that I've certainly run across before as well. Mostly for credit card payments, though. We got time to slip in one more question. Anybody have something that they want to slip in under the wire?
Graham, I don't mean to monopolize, but I did have a question on VOAtlanta, or a comment actually. I wasn't able to attend due to a conflict, but I did subscribe to the VOAtlanta TV, and I found it pretty good. There's not a lot of content up there yet, but it does have a lot of the breakout sessions, and you know, I've learned quite a bit from it. I was just wondering, you know, how much besides the X sessions, which were extra, how much besides the breakout sessions and the, you know, common sessions was there that may or may not be included in the VOAtlanta TV?
Well, as I said earlier, Steve, I'm really convinced that a lot of the benefits of attending a conference like this are what happens outside of the breakout rooms.
Absolutely.
It's the networking. It's, you know, sitting down next to, you know, Scott Brick or Bob Bergen at lunch and, you know, having a chance to chat up the voice of Porky Pig. You know, those are, you know, priceless, and those are the types of opportunities that you just don't get by subscribing to VOAtlanta.tv. On the other hand, being able to consume the content that is available there kind of on your own calendar is really helpful as well. And it's if I remember right, it wasn't that expensive. So, you know, the learning that you can walk away for, you know, a fairly reasonable investment is probably definitely worthwhile. But I really do think that there's a fair amount of stuff that goes on that is never going to make it onto, you know, VOAtlanta.tv.
I just wanted to say, Graham, your eyes match your green top, and it's very lovely.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I appreciate that. And with that, we're going to call it a night now that I'm blushing. Don't forget that OpenMicVO episodes do get posted to YouTube. Just search for OpenMicVO when you go to YouTube, and you'll get led directly to our page. Thank you so much for all of you participating tonight. Until next Sunday, work hard, audition a ton, and get lots of work. We'll talk to you next week. Good night, everybody.